Chapter 3. Lust, Desire, and Passion. The night stretches on, the stars scattered above like distant lanterns. The fire crackles softly, sending small embers into the air. Roy stirs in his sleep, his injured shoulder twitching now and then. But his exhaustion anchors him deeply in his dreams. Octavia remains awake, sitting cross-legged with a bow across her lap. Her green eyes scan the darkness beyond the fire's glow, ever watchful. A distant rustle in the underbrush makes her stiffen. Her hand instinctively reaches for an arrow. But when a small rabbit hops out into the open, she exhales quietly and lowers her weapon. Still, her gaze lingers on the shadows, as though expecting something more to come. She shifts her cloak again, the firelight catching the faint outline of a scar that cuts across her left hand, one Royce hasn't noticed yet. She glances back at him. In his sleep, Royce's face looks even younger, almost peaceful, a stark contrast to his usual determination. Octavia's lips tighten as she studies him. For all his rough edges and impulsive nature, she can tell he's more than what appears. There's a spark in him, a kind of resilience she's seen only in the rarest of people. It reminds her of someone she used to know, someone she lost. Her thoughts are interrupted by the faint cry of an owl in the distance. She shifts her attention back to the forest, her grip on her bow tightening for a moment before she forces herself to relax. One thing at a time, she murmurs under her breath, her voice so soft that even the fire doesn't catch it. The hours pass and the forest grows colder. Roy stirs again, waking briefly. His eyes flutter open, catching a glimpse of Octavia sitting by the fire. "You're still up?" he asks groggily, his voice heavy with sleep. "Someone has to keep watch," she replies without looking at him. "You should rest too," he says, shifting slightly against the tree. "You're not invincible, you know." A faint smirk tugs at the corner of her lips, though it's gone as quickly as it appeared. "I'll rest when I know we're safe." Royce doesn't argue. Instead, he leans back again, letting his eyes drift shut. "Thanks," he mutters quietly, almost too softly to hear. Octavia glances at him, her expression unreadable. She doesn't respond, but there's a flicker of something in her eyes. Acknowledgement, perhaps, or maybe just understanding. As the night deepens, the fire begins to die down. Its embers grow, glowing faintly. The forest around them remains quiet, the earlier tensions giving way to stillness that feels almost sacred. Roy slips back into his dreams, and Octavia eventually allows herself to lean back against a nearby rock, her bow still within reach. The first light of dawn begins to creep through the trees, casting a pale golden hue over the campsite. Roy stirs awake to find Octavia already up, tending to the fire and inspecting her arrows. Her movements are precise, efficient, as though she's been awake for hours. "Morning," Roy says, his voice rough. "Morning," she replies without looking at him. "Eat something quickly, we've got a lot of ground to cover." Roy stretches, wincing as the movement pulls at the bandaged shoulder. As he chews on some dried rations, he watches Octavia, her focus unwavering as she prepares for the day ahead. "Ready?" she asks, slinging her pack over her shoulder. "Ready," he replies, grabbing his axes and standing by her side. Together they step back onto the path, the forest bathed in the soft glow of morning. Whatever lies ahead, whether it's danger, discovery, or something else entirely, they'll face it together. As they walk side by side, the forest seems to envelop them in its quiet beauty. The sun filters through the canopy above, casting dappled patterns of light on the dirt path. The earthy scent of moss and pine fills the air, mingling with the faint hum of insects and the occasional chirp of birds. Conversation flows naturally between Royce and Octavia, the words weaving a thread that connects them in ways neither had expected. Octavia's voice softens as she begins to share her story. her green eyes momentarily distant. My parents were explorers, she begins. Not the kind who mapped trade routes or searched for fame. They sought knowledge, truth. They believed the world was filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. She hesitates, her fingers brushing against a tree trunk as they pass. The last expedition took them across the eastern seas. A storm swallowed their ship whole, or so the reports say. I was 10. Royce listens intently, his steps slowing. I'm sorry, he says, his voice carrying genuine empathy. Octavia shrugs, though there's a hint of vulnerability in her expression. It's why I do what I do. To carry on their spirit, I suppose. Or maybe to prove myself their legacy didn't end with them. As Royce ponders how to respond, Octavia quickly changes the subject. Their conversation shifts tone and becomes punctuated by laughter as they trade stories about simpler times. Royce recounts an embarrassing tale of falling into a mud pit while chasing a rogue goat, and Octavia shares a humorous misadventure involving a faulty map and a very irate shopkeeper. Time slips away, the miles melting beneath their feet as they explore not only the forest but each other's dreams and ambitions. By midday, they reach a small river winding through the trees. Its crystal clear water sparkles in the sunlight, the gentle sound of its flow a soothing melody. Octavia stops and gestures towards the riverbank. Let's rest here. The path will be still waiting for us when we're ready. Royce nods, grateful for the break. They settle by the water's edge, the cool breeze carrying with it refreshing reprieve from the afternoon heat. Royce rummages through his bag and pulls out provisions they brought from the inn. Dried fruits, bread, and small wedges of cheese. Octavia takes a bite of the bread and raises an eyebrow. Not bad, she comments with a hint of approval. I expected worse, to be honest. Royce grins. It's not exactly a banquet, but it beats stale biscuits. As they eat, the forest feels alive around them. A dragonfly hovers near the water's surface, its wings glinting like shards of glass. Royce leans back on his elbows, letting the tranquility of the moment sink in. Then something catches his eye. Among the trees on the far side of the river, a flicker of light dances like a cluster of fireflies, but far brighter and more memorizing. The shimmering glow seems to pulse, moving fluidly as though alive. You see that? Royce asks, pointing. Octavia turns, her gaze locking onto the mysterious lights. Her eyes narrow, then widen with curiosity. I see it, but what is it? Royce shakes his head, unable to look away. I don't know. It's almost magical. Octavia stands, her excitement unmistakable. It might be. Or it could be a hidden treasure. Either way, we can't ignore it. She grabs her bow and slings her pack over her shoulder. Let's find out. Royce hesitates, glancing between the shimmering lights and the peaceful riverbank. And with that being said, my friends, we have our first poll of the night. What are they going to do? What are they going to do, chat? Ready, set, vote! Ready, set, vote! Holy fucking shit, everyone is paying attention right now. Scroll, welcome back, brother. Everyone is paying attention.
Greetings, new follower.
What the hell?
Most people are so ungrateful to be in this stream. But not you. Not anymore.
That was kind of creepy. I forgot that I did not mute Twitch. My bad. I didn't mute my Twitch alerts. I forgot I was live on Twitch, alright? Give me a break. I still have my Halloween alerts for Twitch. Great streamer. Streamer of the year. Guys, we have about 1 more minute to get in your votes. 1 more minute to get in your votes. We have 8 people voting here right now. I love it, guys. I appreciate your guys' votes. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. All good, Squirrel. I get it. I get it. Time is running out. If you have not gotten in your vote, get it in. Even though it looks grim for most people that are not on the investigate the light path. Things can switch. I've seen it happen. As we come down to the final 10 seconds. And just like that, investigate the light wins. Investigate the light wins. With their curiosity piqued, they follow the mysterious light deeper into the forest. The journey is not without its challenges as they push through thick brambles that snag at their clothes, navigate slippery patches of mud that threaten to send them sprawling, and step cautiously around hidden crevices that seem to yawn beneath their feet. Yet the allure of the glowing phenomenon compels them forward, each step bringing a sense of wonder and anticipation. After what feels like an eternity of trekking, they emerge into a small clearing. The air seems lighter here, charged with an almost tangible magic. At the center of the clearing stands the source of the light, a cluster of glowing mushrooms. Their soft bioluminescent hues of blue, green, and silver illuminate the area with an ethereal radiance, casting shimmering patterns on the surrounding trees and grass. Octavia gasped, her voice barely above a whisper. Fairy mushrooms. I've only read about them in old text. They said they grow in places where the boundary between this world and the mystical is thin. I never thought I'd actually see them. Roy steps closer, his eyes wide as he takes in the surreal beauty of the scene. They're incredible, he says, his voice low with reverence. It feels like we've stumbled into another world, like the stories from when I was a boy about fairies and magical realms. As they stand transfixed, a faint hum in the clearing. It stands subtle, but soon grows into a hauntingly beautiful melody, as though the forest itself is singing. The sound is neither loud nor intrusive. Instead, it wraps around them like a gentle embrace, filling the air with inexplicable warmth. Octavia tilts her head, listening intently. Do you hear that? She murmurs, her voice soft. Royce nods, his eyes darting around the clearing as if trying to find the source. It's enchanting, he says. The melody stirs something deep inside him, a longing he can't quite place. His gaze shifts to Octavia. The light from the mushrooms reflects in her eyes, making them glow with an otherworldly green. She stands motionless, enraptured by the beauty of the moment, a rare softness in her expression. Royce feels his heart skip a beat, a sudden urge bubbling within him. This moment, he thinks to himself, it feels like something out of a dream. Should I? The melody seems to swell, as if encouraging him. Royce clears his throat, his voice tentative. Octavia, she glances at him, her brows raising slightly in question. Would you? He hesitates, glancing down at the ground before meeting her eyes again. Would you like to dance? Octavia blinks in surprise, her expression unreadable for a moment. Then, to Royce's relief, her lips curve into a small smile. Here.
Greetings, new follower. Most people are so ungrateful to be in this stream, but not you. Not anymore.
Now, she asks, a playful note in her voice. He shrugs, trying to mask his nerves with a grin. Why not? When else will we have a chance like this? Dancing in the middle of an enchanted forest? With fairy mushrooms and magical music? Octavia chuckles softly, her laughter blending harmoniously with the melody. Fair point, she says, stepping closer. Amy, 1 second. Thank you for the follow. Royce extends a hand, and Octavia takes it. Her warm touch against his. They move slowly at first, unsure and awkward, but soon they find a rhythm that matches the ethereal tune around them. The world outside, the clearing fades away, leaving only the two of them, the glowing mushrooms, and the hauntingly beautiful hum of the forest. Royce feels completely at peace. In this moment, surrounded by magic and mystery, he allows himself to hope for adventure, for connection, for something more. And as he looks at Octavia, her smile soft and unguarded, he wonders if she might be feeling the same. As the melody of the forest fades and the last of their steps come to a halt, Royce and Octavia linger in the clearing. The glowing fairy mushrooms cast a soft, otherworldly glow over them, and the forest feels still, as if it's still holding its breath. Octavia looks up at Royce, her green eyes shimmering in the magical light. That was unexpected, she admits, brushing a loose strand of her hair from her face. Royce smiles. Amy. Okay, I'm terrible with names. I apologize. Royce smiles, his heart still pounding from the dance. Unexpected can be good, he replies. She nods, but her gaze shifts towards the forest's dark edges. Her expression grows thoughtful, almost wistful. This moment feels like it's borrowed, like it doesn't belong to us. Royce tilts his head, studying her. What do you mean? Octavia shrugs, her eyes scanning the glowing mushrooms. It's rare to find something so pure in a world that can be so cruel. It feels fragile, like it could disappear at any moment. Maybe that's why it feels so special, because we know it won't last. Her words settle over Royce, and for the first time, he notices how fleeting the light around them truly feels. The mushroom's glow has already begun to dim, their bioluminescence fading like embers after a fire. We should go, Octavia says, her voice tinged with regret. If we stay too long, we might overstay our welcome. The forest gave us this moment, but it might not be so kind if we take more than we're given. Royce nods. He picks up his axes from where they rested on the ground, and Octavia slings her bow over her shoulder. Together, they leave the clearing, casting one last glance at the fading mushrooms before stepping back into the dense forest. As they walk, the magical glow behind them vanishes entirely, leaving the dark woods to swallow in mystery once again. The forest seems quieter now, almost reverent, as if acknowledging the respect for its secrets. Octavia glances at Royce, her expression soft but guarded. And not what I expected you know. When I met you, I thought you were just some clueless boy with no idea what they were getting into. Royce chuckles. I don't think you're wrong about the clueless part, but I'm learning thanks to you. She smirks, but there's warmth in her eyes. Keep learning, Royce. You'll need it. The world is an unforgiving place. The reminder sobers him, but he nods. I'll be ready. They can reconnect with the original path and continue towards Blackwater. Hours pass as the journey stretches into the growing night. Though the fairy mushrooms are behind them, Royce feels as though they've carried some of the light with them. An unspoken connection forged in the magic of the forest, one that neither one of them fully understands yet. The stars begin to shimmer through the breaks in the canopy above. Octavia slow paces and then stops, turning to Royce with a contemplative expression. Blackwater is about an hour or two away, she says, her voice calm but edged with weariness. We can push on and make it there tonight, or we can stop here and set up camp, then head into town first thing in the morning. Your call. Royce glances around, his body heavy with fatigue of the day's journey. The thought of pressing on doesn't sit well. His legs ache and his shoulders still sting faintly from the bear's claw, and every step seems to drag more from the last. But the promise of a warm bed, sturdy walls, and the safety of the inn pulls at him. He considers his options carefully. With that being said, my brothers and sisters, we come to our next option. What should they do? Should they continue to push forward? Or should they make camp? Get your votes in. Get them in. All right, Amy, now I have a second to talk. I appreciate the follow, Amy. Welcome into the Viking Kingdom. We are right now, this is technically isn't D&D. I am a DM. That being said, right now what we are doing is we are writing a choose your own adventure book. A choose your own adventure book. And I am writing each chapter. After each read, we write one chapter, and then we read the chapter live on stream, and the chat gets to vote on things within the story, on the decisions that the characters make. And then it affects the next chapter or things that happened within the story. As you can see right now, since you're on Twitch and we don't have the voting option on Twitch, if you want to put what you would vote for, go ahead and just say which one of the two options up above you would vote for. D&D is a blast. That is something we're trying to add into the routine here on this channel. We have a split vote right now. A split vote. 4-4 with under 30 seconds left. With under 30 seconds left. Who is going to be the deciding... Emma, you won't be able to vote on Twitch, but if you want to vote... If you just want to say what option you would pick, go ahead and say it, and I will count your vote. I will count your vote. All right, Amy said 1 right when the voting came to an end. What do we do? I don't know what we do here. Do we make Amy vote on the next one? Oh, guys, I really want one of these. I really want one of these two options to win. I'm not gonna lie. I really want... One of these goes a lot harder than the other, and I figured it would win in a landslide. So I guess we have to obey the rules. We have to obey the rules. You stream daily? Pretty much. Tuesday nights we read a chapter. Every Tuesday we read a chapter of this story. All right, we're rolling the D20. So 1 through 10 will be we make camp. And 11 through 20. That's right, correct? 11 through 20 is... We have not rolled yet. Blackwater is what I want to happen, but we're going to roll regardless. Let's see what happens. Please be 11 through 20. My God, I rolled the nat 20. I won. I got a nat 20. All right, we're going to Blackwater. I won anyway. Blackwater won. We're going to Blackwater. Rigged. Not rigged. Rebecca, there was a vote on Twitch, and the people on Twitch don't have the option to. They can't participate in the poll because the poll is only on Kick, and they voted for one, which was not Blackwater. That's what happened. But Blackwater ended up winning anyway, so. Anyway. Royce thinks back to the encounter with the bear. The thought of encountering something similar, even more dangerous, fills him with caution. Wait, that's the wrong thing. Sorry. Sorry, wrong one. Royce takes a deep breath, brushing the dirt from his palms. He looks at Octavia, the faint light of the stars reflected in her green eyes. Let's keep going, he says, his voice steady, despite the weariness pulling at him. I'd rather sleep in a bed tonight than on the ground. Octavia nods, a small, knowing smile tugging at the corner of her lips. All right, but don't expect me to carry you if you pass out, she teases. Adjusting the strap on her satchel, she gestures down the path. Let's move. The sooner we get there, the sooner we can rest. The forest grows darker as they press on, the sounds of a nocturnal creature stirring all around them. Crickets chirp in rhythmic harmony, and the occasional rustle of leaves keeps them alert. The narrow path winds through thick trees, their gnarled roots curling out like skeletal figures. Royce tightens his grip on his axe, his eyes scanning the shadows for any sign of trouble. We're almost there, Octavia says softly, her voice carrying a reassurance that spurs Royce's forward. Finally, the dense forest begins to thin, and the faint glow of the lanterns comes into view. The soft murmur of distant voices and the clatter of hooves on cobblestone reach their ears, growing louder as they approach. Blackwater looms before them, a bustling harbor town nestled against the coastline. The salty tang of ocean mixes with the smell of burning wood and cooked food, a welcome change from the earlier scent of the forest. The main street is alive with activity, even at the late hour. Sailors shuffle between taverns, merchants cart their wares to storage, and a group of children dart past, laughing as they chase a dog. The faint sound of sea shanties drips from an alehouse, and warm light spills onto the street from its open doors. Octavia glances at Royce. Not bad for a first impression, huh? She remarks, motioning towards the lively scene. It's busier than I expected, Royce admits, his exhaustion momentarily forgotten as he takes in the sights. Octavia leads him through the bustling streets to an inn tucked off the main road. The building is modest but well kept, with a sign swinging above the door that reads, The Silver Gull. Inside, the atmosphere is warm and inviting. A fire crackles in the hearth, and a few patrons sit at wooden tables nursing their drinks. The innkeeper, a stout man with a thick beard, greets them with a hearty smile. You look like you've traveled far, he says. We've got rooms available and stew warm if you're hungry. Octavia steps forward, handling the transaction. 2 rooms and 2 bowls of stew, please. Royce leans against the counter, the fatigue catching up to him. Octavia hands him a key in his steaming bowl, nudging him toward the table near the fire. They sit in comfortable silence as they eat, the warmth of the stew and the glow of the fire easing the aches of the day. Royce feels the tension leave his body as he can see that Octavia seems more relaxed in the safety of the inn. As they finish their meal, Octavia speaks, her voice quieter now. Get some rest, Royce. Tomorrow, we start looking for a crew. Royce nods, his eyes already heavy. He makes his way upstairs to his room, collapsing onto the simple but inviting bed. The sounds of the harbor hover faintly in the background as he drifts into a deep, dreamless sleep, ready to face whatever the new day brings. The night is calm, the soft crash of waves against the docks lulling Blackwater into a peaceful slumber. Royce lies motionless in bed, the exhaustion of the day pulling him into a deep sleep. Across the hall, Octavia rests with one hand on the hilt of her dagger, her body attuned to any noise out of the ordinary. Suddenly, a thunderous crash pierces the silence, shaking the walls of the silver goal. Royce jolts awake, disoriented, his heart pounding in his chest. The faint sound of shouting follows, distant at first but growing louder. He stumbles out of bed, grabbing his axes from the side table. The room glows faintly as the orange light flickers through the window. He rushes to the pane and pulls back the curtain. Fire. The horizon is ablaze, illuminating the silhouette of longships docked at the harbor, their dragon-headed prows ominously visible. The shouts of townfolks turn to screams as the clashing of steel and war cries echo through the streets. Royce's stomach tightens. He read. A pounding knock comes at his door, and before he can respond, Octavia bursts in, her dagger in one hand and the bow slung over her shoulder. Get dressed, now! She snaps, her voice low but urgent. What's going on? Royce asks, though he already knows the answer. Vikings, Octavia says, her eyes green and sharp. The town's under attack. We need to move now. Royce pulls on his boots, fastening his belt with trembling fingers. Do we run or fight? We survive, Octavia replies. She throws him a small pouch of supplies. Stick with me, and don't do anything stupid. The two hurry down the stairs into chaos. The common room of the inn is in disarray. Tables and chairs are overturned, and the innkeeper is frantically ushering his family toward a back exit. You two, he shouts. If you're looking to get out of here, there's a path behind the stables that leads to the forest. Go now, while you still can. Octavia nods but pauses, her eyes narrowing as the sound of boots approach. The door to the inn bursts open and a towering figure steps inside. A Viking warrior, his axe gleaming in the firelight. His face is painted with streaks of black, and a cruel grin sprints across his face as he spots them. Roy steps forward, his axe is in hand. Octavia draws an arrow. The Viking charges, roaring as he swings his weapon. Royce ducks, the blade missing his head by inches. He counters with a swift strike of his axe, the blade biting into the Viking's side. The warrior grunts but doesn't fall, instead turning his attention to Octavia. She lets loose an arrow that buries itself into his shoulder, but the Viking keeps coming, rage fueling his every step. Royce throws himself between Octavia and the warrior, blocking a brutal overhead strike with both axes. The force sends him stumbling backwards, his arms shaking from the impact. Octavia takes advantage of the distraction, firing another arrow that sinks into the Viking's throat. The man gurgles, dropping his axe before collapsing to the ground. Nice timing, Royce says, panting. Don't thank me, Octavia replies, already moving toward the exit. There's more where that came from. They step outside into utter chaos. Flames consume buildings, casting eerie shadows as raiders rampage through the streets. Townsfolk flee in every direction, some clutching what belongings they could grab, others crying out for help. We can't just leave them, Royce says, watching a Viking corner a young woman clutching a child. Octavia hesitates, her jaw tightening. We don't have the numbers to fight them all. And with that, my friends, we come across yet another option. Another vote to be had. What will we do in this situation? As the raid is in full force, do we run or do we fight? Do we run or do we fight? Amy has done it. She has made it over the kick. Welcome over, my sister. Welcome in, my sister. Get your votes in. How's it going, Breezy? Are we running or fighting, chat? We are approaching 1 minute left in the voting process. Just to create my account to vote. Yeah, we'll need to figure out a way to be able to allow Twitch chat to vote too. I don't know how we're going to do that, but we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We will figure it out. Well, I forgot about that. I forgot about that. God damn it, Quell, then add that to the list of things we need to mute. Add that to the list of things we need to mute, Quelton. I forgot about thank you, Breezy. Thank you. And Amy, welcome into the chosen few, the Shield Wall. The Butty clan. Welcome in, my sister. 8-2. 8 votes to fight, 2 votes to run. What is Royce and Octavia going to do? And there it is. We are fighting. We are fighting. Royce doesn't wait for her response. He charges toward the raider, burying one of his axes into the man's back. The Viking collapses and Royce helps the woman to her feet. Octavia catches up, her expression a mix of admiration. Oh, sorry. Sorry, let me reread that. Royce doesn't wait for her response. He charges towards the raider, burying one of his axes into the man's back. The Viking collapses and Royce helps the woman to her feet. Get to the forest, he urges, pointing in the direction the innkeeper had mentioned. Octavia catches up, her expression a mix of frustration and admiration. You're going to get yourself killed, she mutters, notching another arrow. I'll take that risk, Royce replies. The duo moves through the burning town like a whirlwind. Octavia's arrow pierces raiders before they even know she's there, while Royce's axes deliver crushing blows in close combat. They fight alongside the townsfolk, bolstering their morale and turning what seemed like a desperate last stand into a coordinated defense. As the battle in Blackwater rages, Royce and Octavia fight valiantly, cutting through raiders and doing everything they can to protect the townsfolk. The air is thick with the scent of smoke and blood, and the roar of the flames drowns out cries for help. They battle side by side, the coronation keeping them alive against the overwhelming odds. But the tide begins to shift against them. Royce swings his axe in deathly arc, cutting down another raider, but the exhaustion in his limbs is undeniable. Octavia lets loose another arrow that grazes the shoulder of a Viking lunging toward her, then spins to stab another in the chest with her dagger. We're getting surrounded, she shouts over the din of the battle, her breath ragged. I know, Royce replies, scanning the chaos for a way out. The two of them are pressed back into the marketplace, hemmed in by the raiders on every side. The townsfolk they fought alongside have either fallen or scattered, leaving Royce and Octavia to face the attackers alone. A massive Viking, his face streaked with war paint and his chainmail glinting in the fire pit, steps forward. His eyes lock onto Royce and Octavia, and he grins wickedly. Drop your weapons, he growls in broken common, raising a blood-stained sword. Royce grips his axe tighter, his chest heaving. Not a chance, he mutters under his breath. Octavia's hand shifts toward another arrow, but before she can knock it, another Viking appears behind her and grabs her arm, twisting it painfully. She yelps in pain, her bow falling to the ground. Let her go! Royce roars, charging toward her. He managed to strike the Viking holding Octavia, forcing him to release her. But in his desperation, he leaves himself open. A heavy blow from the Raider's shield crashes into Royce's shoulder, sending him sprawling to the ground. His axes fall from his hand, clattering to the cobblestone. Royce! Octavia cries, but another Viking grabs her, pinning her arms behind her back. She struggles fiercely, kicking and twisting, but the man is too strong. Royce tries to push himself up, but the massive Viking with the sword steps on his chest, forcing him back down. Enough, the Raider growls. The fight drains out of Royce as he feels the cold metal of the sword pressed against his throat. His heart pounds, his mind racing.
Warning. 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 Warning.
Anyway. His heart pounds, his mind racing. Octavia is dragged to her knees beside him, her defiance replaced by a smoldering glare. Take them, the leader commands in a... Alright, we got 5 minutes to finish this fucking goddamn trash. We thank you, brother. In a guttural voice. They'll fetch a good price or make useful slaves. Before Royce can protest, a blow to the back of the head plunges him into darkness. When Royce regains consciousness, the first thing he notices is a damp chill in the air. He groans as he sits up, his head pounding and his shoulder aching from his earlier blow. His hands are bound tightly with coarse ropes, and he's sitting on the floor of a ship. The faint creak of the wood and the rocking motion beneath him confirm it. They're on the Viking's vessel. Octavia is seated across from him, her wrists also tied. A dark bruise mars her cheek, but her eyes are sharp and alert. She notices Royce stir and leans closer. You're awake, she whispers, her voice low and steady. What happened? Royce asks, his throat dry. We've been captured, she says grimly. The Vikings are taking us somewhere. Maybe to sell us, maybe worse. Royce's stomach sinks as he glances around the dimly lit hold. Other captives, most of them women and children, sit huddled together, their faces etched with fear and despair. The faint sound of waves crashing against the hull echoes around them, a chilling reminder of how far from safety they are. Royce shifts against his bindings, testing their strength. We can't let this happen, he says, his voice filled with quiet determination. Octavia gives him a hard look. You think I don't know that? But we are unarmed, outnumbered, and we don't know where they're taking us. Royce clenches his jaw, his mind racing. He feels the weight of failure pressing down on him. As he looks around the ship, he is met with the realization of helplessness. Imprisoned on a boat, lost at sea, surrounded by multiple Viking ships, full of soldiers. With a sigh of defeat, he gazes upon the vast ocean and ponders what could possibly lie ahead. Uncertainty fills his mind. Suddenly, the dream he had nights ago begins to replay vividly in his mind. As each moment of the dream replays in his head, he notices something in the direction of the ship and the direction it's sailing. Dark, ominous clouds on the horizon. Royce freezes. His jaw drops, and he very faintly mutters, "Oh shit." Scene!